Chalet looking no doubt to take this 2-0. MIBR here for some redemption.
Okay, Coastline, it's not been a great place for DAMWON Kia. We can only really work on the sort of ideas of how have they played when they've played against Latin American teams and vice versa for MIBR. And in terms of DAMWON Kia, they sort of had a mixed record coming into this, and Coastline was some of the sort of biggest mix of that. It's been some of their biggest losses. It's been a victory against Furia, a loss versus Liquid. It's a back and forth, and it just hasn't always been something that they've been able to get a steady reliance on the same way they have with Chalet, which currently, I believe they're undefeated against Latin America teams. On here, I guess we'll see if they can start to try and bring some semblance of balance back, but as I said, I still think the pressure's on them. MIBR, the only pressure they have right now is against themselves. If they can match the performance they had on the previous map, I truly believe us heading to that third map.
Coastline's a map that is regularly trotted out inside of the BR6, and it was a map that MIBR sort of leaned into at a time when they weren't firing on all cylinders, when they didn't have Felipox playing on the team due to injury. It was somewhere that they tried to go for a little bit of an easier time of things, because there's a little bit less reliance on certain things, and it can more often than not come down to big players stepping up. So I think it's the statistics are a slight bit skewed on that because of that fact, but it's still a relatively good map here for MIBR. The bans, not quite as strange as last time, but still erring on the side of Funky, Lion, Nomad are going to be the two that you really look toward. Mirror and the Valkyrie removed as a standard. Nobody really wanted to deal with that level of intel, and it forces a pick onto something a little bit differently. Now Lucid, I really like Lucid's playstyle on this map. He will play the Oryx, not afraid to use it.
No.
And this is really where I think MIBR come into their own with their style of defense. The one side player, the 4-3 guys out on the roam, it's something that does really work for him, and it does well on a map like Coastline.
I think that's it as well. You have the pace and the space you can play. It's so much is written with this map and Oryx. When he first started getting introduced, when he first started getting some play, it was only really on Coastline. And only really on Coastline and Bank you think that he can reach a true potential. Just because of the pace and the rotation and application of those hatches, they're in so many positions that they can truly try and deep dive and dig their way into and pull back, and Coastline is constant. You're never truly clear on Coastline. It doesn't matter. You can see one corner of the map all the way to the other. It's small, it's paper thin, it's a dangerous donut with a delicious hole of death in the middle, and all of it happens as a crisscross across it. Lucid though, he's the first that might be finding a fight here. They put some pressure onto the windows and Baux, but it's DAMWON Kia. A steady approach. What I hope is some awareness that assume MIBR are watching.
And that's it. MIBR are positioned well enough at this point to sort of take command of each and every corner of the map and just work from there. We've got Felipox downstairs inside of office. There are going to be players looking to work in a little bit further ahead. It's going to be Lucid with the drop. Opens up the hatch potentially for later, and has given himself a little bit of a rotation as well in toward Billiards.
Well, there's a little bit of a flirt with danger. Operator outside, and I feel like that's going to be far from the last time we see that indicator this game. And far from the last time DAMWON Kia see it too. Katsang's going for a steady approach here. Sees an idea, but it's Oryx and there's hatches. Whenever you've got an information, just assume that 10 seconds later it's out of date. The man can move. And this map, as I said, is small. Redux on the open door. Has some support and swing round possibility here. They've got themselves this net and extension all across the ground floor. There's nobody on the second story for now, and that's going to allow DAMWON Kia to sort of start trying to set themselves up for a take right on the bar side. It's popping open the back. Full suffers a little bit from the charge above him, and, well, is lucky not to suffer more. There's some toes. There's more. There's the first kill. Katsang gets a bit of a freebie against such a power player on that site denial.
Yeah, you really don't want to be losing out on fouls, particularly as you enter the minute mark. It's just going to make things even more difficult. Redux with a chance here, though, to try and level things back. Lukid takes Yas, but Philippox will be downed in process. You can hear that LMG sing, and you've always got to be wondering where Lukid is. Now, the plant is being attempted here at the moment, and there's honestly nothing to stop that from going down. So Coated's going to get that down for free as the firefights rage on above. Rin with one onto Lukid. No chance of a flashy rotation now. This is going to be fairly lock it off from this point out for DAMWON Kia.
Well, back up, but as one goes, one goes. The trade-off comes through, they lose the player that's above, they can't quite get the angle and the opening idea, thought somebody might be holding it, but at this point they've moved off. They've got to take the fight above. They cannot just leave that free territory, but look at the hole DAMWON Kia have. If I'm going to compliment the fact that you can be very wide on this, they've made sure that they exemplify that. They have players all the way in office watching for this plant to keep some modicum of control over it, but at this point they can just move a bit closer because the round's over. MIBR, they're off to a little bit of a false start here, couldn't quite get the solidity that they wanted, and DAMWON Kia, they saw a site, they took it.
That's the danger of playing the one-site player. If you're not in position to rotate back, and with the way that DAMWON Kia exposed inside of Hookah, they ripped open the floor, they had Hookah balcony nice and early on, and there was nothing that MIBR could do. They couldn't retake from above, they tried that, and they just got cut off at every single turn. This is where it starts to become a problem, because as nice as a roaming style as that is, and as much coordination as it takes as a team to be able to consistently pull that off with trust and support into fouls that site player, or whether it's going to be Raps or whoever it might be, it's always fouls, and then sometimes it's somebody else as well. But with that trust and that support that you're giving, if you can't make it back onto the site, if you can't retake vertical, if you can't get there and be an impact player, DAMWON Kia is slowly but surely reading into this, and if these plants just start getting quicker and quicker, they're going to get more and more confident as the rounds go on. It was great to see a plant go down so early on in a Coastline game.
Well, DAMWON Kia, they have a habit of starting their attacks with plants. So far, that's been a consistency, I believe, across both play days. They've made sure that the first time they go for a swing, yeah, they've been able to get themselves in and get a diffuser down. It's a stat that keeps them going. They're a really good objective-focused team, and they seem to make it work even when a lot is being pushed and pressured against them. Change of pace, we're heading over to Kitchen, the other ground floor site C. If there's a better site to see for MIBR here. They had themselves quite spread out on the ground, and I think handing over the verticality, sure, there was a player there early on, but they didn't try and hold on to it. They didn't try and stick to it, and that gave that verticality, which gave the first kill. Coastline, there's no real free territory. You almost have to try and keep as much hot as possible, and especially against a team like DK that, again, sees space, takes space.
See space, take space. It's exactly what you've got to do on Coast. You can't afford to be looking at trying to find nice little niche picks here and there. You've got to find that brute force, and especially when you've got a team that are going to be playing fairly aggressively, there needs to be somebody else there if you're going to try and challenge Redux, because he is going to punish you for it. Coated there, just peeking with his head very kindly for Redux to take it off. Does deal a little bit of damage, but loses the diffuser in quite a key location. We are going to see the Rotero drone come through, and that's going to remove one of the bulletproof cameras that's going to be played in sight. Still, it's a bit of a lackluster trade, I think it's fair to say.
Well, another Rotero is about to make its way around, but that one, it gets caught out. Falls is more than happy to watch this. He's in a power position, but Yas finally gets the kill onto Redux, the revenge, as they're able to take that open. And they still need to try and recollect the diffuser at this point, but again, this is kind of what I wanted to see from MIBR. Don't forget about the other story. You can't really hand over the verticality on a map like this. All of the sites have some pressure that can come around, especially the ground floor ones, from somebody above. That Flores drone, that Rotero, is able to get that shield, the connector on the far side. They keep slipping these by the MIBR players, and well, Rin goes down in the next engagement. They're trying to find their way in from the middle. As I said, that's a dangerous center to a donut, but with all the cross angles and fires that it opens it up, Rin is probably far from being picked up, but they're able to balance it back and technically make it a 3 versus 3.
Entering the final minute. Still a lot of work here to do for DAMWON Kia. They still haven't taken sufficient control vertically. They've still not really got a way into the site, and with Rin down on the other side, it doesn't give them that extra pair of eyes to hop into drones to really figure out what is going to be going on. That's solely going to be Coated, and you can see him frantically switching through POVs in the one singular drone. Raps is going to oblige and send Rin onto the cameras as well. although there may not be anything to really look at. 30 seconds left and the Toxic Babe canisters start to fly. The diffuser will be collected. Wiggman takes Raps down, furthers the advantage.
The diffuser wasn't collected. They went to swing onto it and then decided not to, whether they wanted to see if they could just push the firefight itself and have it as a last ditch, 15 seconds, and they've still got to try and recollect it and go for the fight itself. Philippe Box, he's on the far side of nowhere trying to find his way back over, but with that diffuser cold, this puts him in a round-winning situation. They win the fight onside the site, but without anybody with that kit in pocket, all you do is hand a round over. What was that, DAMWON Kia?
I'm wondering if the diffuser was picked up and dropped like instantly, because the mechanics changed on it slightly, hasn't it? It's no longer like just run over it and pick it. You've got to press your action button, whatever you've bound that to actually be able to pick that up, and then you can still actually drop it again if you do mess it up. So, unfortunate one. Time running short. We don't often see DAMWON Kia sort of flapping under that amount of time either. Usually they're pretty collected.
It's the first big mistake I think I've seen them, and it was a mistake, because as you called it, he went to pick it up, and yeah, he, I think, went to pick it up, but then he didn't. And whether it was a misplay, whether it was a miscommunication, either way, it was a mistake and a missed moment, and just something that was their round that they've handed to MIBR. And okay, sometimes you get those windfalls. MIBR build from it. Try and get something else behind it and see if you can punish those mistakes. I liked the growth. I liked the verticality. I want to see more of it. And I suppose we're gonna, as we find ourselves over on Penthouse now, they're not going to go back to Bar for now. They're going to see if they can stack themselves up, avoiding Hookah as a site.
Does seem like a strange choice to avoid going into Hookah Billiards. They were more than happy to go down to Double Bar to start things off, and you do defend in a somewhat similar way as we all do in any site of Siege. You know, typically you're going to pay as much attention to the vertical of the site, whether that's above or below. So a strange decision, I think, but maybe they're just looking to give us the full tour. Penthouse and Theatre, a site that has fallen into fashion since Coastline's rework or readjustment, maybe we should call it, a couple of months ago. Still, the biggest problem for me is going to be that big window. It's still as dangerous a threat as ever, but you can extend a little bit further in toward VIP. Given that VIP now has 2 exterior reinforceable walls, as opposed to the window that sat there previously, it becomes a little bit more appetizing for players to hang around in there. Now, it's only being held by a mute. Sometimes you maybe will bring a Cade to get that job done, but with Thatcher on the board, it really matters not.
DAMWON Kia go for themselves to the second story. They've got a player out on DJ Bauk, and they're going to see if they can get open the VIP wall. This is one of them new additions, one of them new plays and places that changed a little bit of the face of Coastline, but not enough. A slight bit of work, but not a major overhaul that otherwise had gone through some of the other places. There's the breach, there's the thatch, and there's 2 open walls now as both Selmas are able to pop through. Removes that charge and removes Raps. Woogieman's able to get that opening kill. They're able to take care of the Wamai. He is obviously a player. The longer he's alive, gets more dangerous. Coated. A bit of a swing and a dance round, and the Iana's trying to find a fight all the way down towards 90. And, well, there's a player there, but who will see who first? It's turning into a little bit of a dangerous game as more pillars of the structure start to fall and start to pull away.
Redux together, getting inside of the Yokai drones, just seeing if there's anything that he can reposition to. Give Raps something to keep an eye on for the time being. Katsang, upside down repel this time on the big window, not just blindly taking a look, as we saw Kota doing only a round ago. But with no real presence in the site, it isn't likely to yield any results. It's a site that you do play as a retake, and especially when you've got the level of information that MIBR are able to bring here with those Yokai drones, although a plant is going to be going down. Where's the Yokai drone? Where is this denial? Coated. He's going to get away with that one for free. Excuse me? Hopped himself out under the cover of Katsang. Katsang just says, you watch double door, I'm going to keep an eye on this diffuser.
I mean, what happened? It's this sort of signal, it's this red light that beams itself over. As you said, when you have an echo on the board, when you have all of this stuff, you at least have intel, and when that intel goes, you know what's happening, and suddenly it's just this echo left, but not for very long. DAMWON Kia, that is, for my book, twice they've been able to get into the site with just not enough resistance that comes through from MIBR. At that point, you're sort of thinking on that hold, how come they're not aware of this pressure? There wasn't really anything coming through from Projector. There wasn't really anything coming through from 90. You can have cross angles, and it's a bit of a lock-off, sure, but at least if you're not going to have the drone calling the intel, have someone dying and trying to fight back, or have someone underneath, which was entirely uncontested territories. The door of service and, I believe, and definitely the door of Lamborghini was closed. It was free for you to be under that position.
Attackers need to locate.
It is strange because there's not enough. If you're going to play that way, you need to play with so much information that you know every single move that's going on in the site. You can't play that way and just be trying to work off sound or a whim and a prayer. It doesn't work. You know, that really isn't a viable strat. We're going to see it. We're going to see the billiards site. We're going to see who could billiards now come through. No real surprise. Penthouse and Theatre went dreadfully, and the opportunistic nature that is DAMWON Kia at the moment is see a plant, take a plant, and they're more than happy to just do that. Realistically, Fluke, this could be 3 rounds to 0 right now. The kitchen site was a little bit of a mistake, and
it was a throw.
We've sort of called that, you know, we call it as you see it. That would have been another plant, it would have been another round, and DAMWON Kia would have been even further ahead than they already are. So MIBR need to come up with something, they need to come up with something relatively quickly, because this approach of just leaving one player to deal with the site really isn't working, but it's an approach that, I mean, look at it, it's happening again right now, right? We've got Raps playing on the rotation inside of Cool Vibes. We do have a player on Vars, and we do have a player inside, so they are slowly but surely getting themselves a little bit more site-centric, but is it going to be enough?
I guess that's always the thing. Is enough here, and is it something where they've got to have that awareness? Falls is playing himself onto the Cool Vibes stairs, and obviously Hookah as a site is one where it still has some of that countenance, some of that play. The floor is never entirely safe, and once again we're sort of seeing this hold from MIBR where there is pockets of land that other teams have to fight for a very long period of time. Ready to pop around and get some sprays on is seemingly what MIBR are kind of hoping for. You can see a bit of a dance on Ecuador. There's consistent little wiggles around the top of Cool Vibes, but DK, they're keeping themselves at arm's length for now. They're happy to stretch out, make sure that they get a full taste of where everybody is before they go for the full fight.
Kota trying to brute force his way on in there. We can hear the ace charges going off. That's going to open up angles to the top of Cool Vibe stairs and Vars. There's still going to be the shield there, but it's removed anybody from playing there for the time being. Fouls. Switched over. He's on the FMG this time, not rocking the shotgun, so we can take some of these slightly longer range engagement. But that's a great nade from Yas. We haven't seen too many good nades coming out of DAMWON Kia, but that is certainly one to remember. The plant's going down, Rin's upside down repel on that double window. This is a masterclass so far. Detected outside, so what? For Leapox, you have got so much to do, and everybody knows where you are. Katsang with the pre-fire to close things out. DAMWON Kia looking terrifying here on Coastline.
It could be 4-0. It should be 4-0. And MIBR just looked lost. The main thing I said was, I think MIBR can have a good game on this if they keep what they had before. What they had before was so much intel clarity. It was something that played well. Think of all the times we said, expect MIBR to know where you are, DAMWON Kia, because they consistently did. The hop out on free kills against DAMWON Kia players. This time, they have no idea where the Koreans are, what they're setting up for. It is time and time again, 4 rounds in a row. It would have been a plant on a site, and suddenly, you know, everything's gone. But it's not just that. How many of these plants? There's still 4 players still standing on both teams. There's not confrontations happening before they have the site and the objective. What is this disconnect where on Chalet, MIBR, you love the scrap, you love the fight, you gotta refine that love right now, because the longer this goes on Coastline, the more worrying it gets.
It is terrifying, especially when you put into context MIBR 3rd place last year's Invitational. That's when things start to get really scary. So something has to be found, and it has to be found fairly quickly. I think the last time that MIBR will have played Coastline will only have been a couple of days ago, inside of the LATAM qualifier where they played against Black Dragons. And they were able to win, and they got a good couple of rounds there on the defense as well. I think it was fairly defend-decided for them, 5 rounds to 2. So they got 5 rounds on the defense, 2 rounds on the attack. They finished it out at a 7-4. So a fairly balanced game by all accounts, but still, they know how to deal with aggression. They know how to deal with quick plays and quick plants, but they're just not able to here. They're just giving up so much of the side control. And I think it's little plays like this that are happening in the early part of the round, right? We've got Thatcher being run consistently here by Woogieman. We've got Coated on the ace. They're always getting those Selma charges out, and they're not even looking to try and, you know, get in through that as a breach necessarily. It's more as a method to move these players around and to force locations a little bit more from MIBR. That's certainly what we saw in the previous round. It's what we're seeing again here now, and it is very effective.
Okay, DAMWON Kia, I mean, you're still angling yourself well, and it just seems like a pace where, as I'm saying, MIBR aren't really testing it. There's been so much free room and roam for them to be able to piece together. So many times they've got in entirely uncontested, or at best, one player has been the difference between the fight. And as you said, that's an MIBR habit. The single site player and the pressure that comes from elsewhere, but sometimes this is what you want. Those further away players lean in to these aggressive moments earlier, try and find the fights, and try and make them piece together. Whether it was a problem before of not having enough intel, it's not a problem now. Redux, he escapes with his life, but he gives them food for thought, forces DAMWON Kia to be a bit uncomfortable, and makes them have to play a slightly different game.
Just run at them. At this point, you have to run at them. You have to try and make them scared, because nothing else is really working. Woogieman takes Raps down, levels things out, 4 players apiece. Minute left to go, and the pace isn't in this round the same as it has been previously for DAMWON Kia. There's still a real intent on droning out every nook and cranny of the site. Fouls is going to get a little bit more dangerous as the time ticks by as well. A Toxic Babe to cut off that sauna entrance, but still a bit of a lack of information as he doesn't really have everything that he needs here. Yas is going to be pushing in through Kitchen, and Coated going to look to try and just to complete that as a rotation and a breach that is able to move on through. Another Toxic Babe canister to stem the flow, and only 30 seconds left to go. Lukid upstairs, a potential for a rotation here. He also has the hatch to play with, and Philippox will be the first to fall in this final 20. We've still got fouls dug in behind the sofa, and Redux has made a rotation now to the backside of Bar. But with Woogieman coming in from behind, he's going to find himself a slew. Picks up 3, can he make it 4? No, Katsang beats him to it. DK slowly but surely taking a different approach there, and showing us that they are not just a one-trick pony here. They are not just a plant in the first minute. They can really thoroughly execute, and that was from a man down.
That's the game that they've been playing well, and to be honest, as I said, the pressure isn't on DAMWON Kia right now. The pressure is on the fact that MIBR didn't step up to what Coastline needed to be from them, and, you know, DAMWON Kia, those first rounds with the sneaky plants, that was cool casual. That was running it. That was by the book. And there, when things start to get ripped out, when players start to get dropped and MIBR start to show up more, DK are going to sweat. And they can still play those sweat positions. I mean, let's be real, they're a lot of people's favorite team for this. They've come up throughout the year, but they are a terrifying force, and you expect to see their name in this tournament for a very long time. However, that doesn't mean you have to go with them in the approach, and MIBR know this because of the fantastic performance we had on Chalet from them.
4 rounds to 1. Attacker side of Coastline through and through. Kitchen going to be attempted again here, as this is a last-ditch attempt here for MIBR to come away with any semblance of a decent split. If they could get a 2-4 split, it might not be the end of the world for them. But as it stands, this ain't looking great, and I'm not sure how this one will end. DAMWON Kia on the approach. Is it going to be a quick round? Is it going to be a slow round? It really does seem like a bit of a roll of the dice, and almost is the opportunity for them there. I think as the quick rounds have developed, MIBR have become a little bit more mindful of it, and it's caused DAMWON Kia to take that slightly slower approach. See Coated hightailing it around to that service door along with a couple of his teammates, and we might be on for a quick one here. There's a drone that's going to go in and discover, yep, there's a little bit of utility to deal with. We've got a Banshee, but a Flores drone will see to the majority of that, and I think this one's going to be fairly explosive.
Well, stacked up and set up, and they've got themselves repelled, and again, this is potentially looking like one of their attempts to try and get the plant in. A bit of that sneaky aggression. Falls is that backline, but look at the position change he's had. It's minor. Instead of being on one side of the tomatoes, he's now on the other, and he's looking to see if he can long arm some smokes down towards that service entrance. They're trying to see if they can get some angle and idea, and it's otherwise not quite getting it together for now. Reduct is digging. He's just hoping for a bit of anything, really, and that's the problem. They're not getting anything from DAMWON Kia. They're not quite getting a full sight and sight line onto any of the players. They're still stacked up on the top, and in MIBR, they're getting a little bit angsty.
From a round that looked like it was going to take place fairly quickly with the initial information that was gathered, there's something that spooked DAMWON Kia in the process, and there's something that's just caused them to really take a little bit of a step back. Approaching the minute and 15 seconds left mark, and we still haven't seen an opening engagement. We can hear the Selma charges pinging off there in the distance, but where is that fight going to be? Reduct takes Rin down. By all accounts, they spent a lot of the round, inside of those Rotero drones. A lot of that work has now been done, but you've got to rely on him for a gun at some point. Katsang might be looking for a bit of a quick approach here. He maybe knows that there's going to be somebody inside of security and potentially somebody behind this main desk. Where is the fight going to come from? Gives the game away, and Lukid ready and waiting with the swing. Katsang, he's going to need a little bit more than just a singular lifeline to make this happen. Reduct picks up his second and looks as though he's on a bit of a tear. Now we see the Toxic Babe canister start to go through, and there's a juggle of the diffuser again. Oh no, where have we seen this before? Coated throws the Selma charge through as Woogieman finally grabs some sort of a response here.
Well, the response comes through. Katsang's playing a very dangerous game and ring around the roses. He hasn't been able to get anything secure, but the wider he swings, the more likely a player's going to swing back. 10 seconds and a pre-fire, but a drop down and a double-handed over the top. MIBR, they look pretty much everywhere secured for this round, and there it is. 4-2 on a split. It's good. Statistically, it's average, and that is a surprise, I think, because theoretically this should have been a 5-1, and now it's down for MIBR to pick up some pace and some pieces.
I think mentally that is needed for MIBR. They couldn't have afforded to go into that second half any other way. They finally managed to grab something back, and they deserve it. There was some very wobbly calls, I think, from DK inside of that round. The pre-fire onto the barrel in Kitchen was probably my favourite, because it wasn't just a quick tap fire. There was obviously a call that somebody was dug in deep behind that barrel, and the pre-fire was quite intense, but it really didn't come to anything at all. Now the pressure is firmly on. See an Amaru baited and 6 picked off as Fowles is going to head on to Flores. Reduct.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Reduct likes to play the Zafir here. We saw him play Flores previously on Chalet, but Zafir is a much more favoured choice, I believe, and with Philippok's willing to take up that role of Hard Breach, it seems to have freed Fowles up somewhat. Little micro adjustments. The rolls aren't as thick and fast here, and operators can be fairly fluid.
I'm curious to see what approach we get from MIBR here. And I guess I'm curious to see what defense we get from DAMWON Kia too, because DAMWON Kia, when they first started their defenses on Chalet yesterday, it wasn't fantastic. They were a bit too aggressive. They kept on being punished by the holds in the setup here, and I think we're sort of trying to see if we can get anything extra from them, or I guess if MIBR can punish what is quite a loose game. And you know, if there's potentially a build from this, if there's potentially MIBR getting a couple of freebies from loose DAMWON Kia players in play, then maybe there will be a little bit more of a journey, maybe there'll be a little bit more of a destination for them if the game continues. If DAMWON Kia can get some solidity and MIBR under more pressure, it might be a different story.
Look toward the kitchen for the first sight. There's already a hop in here happening as Philippox is going to be trying to really back himself up here. Coated going to be the first player to fall. We do see the revive come through. Philippox does have the diffuser. No intention of planting it just yet, maybe waiting for that cover of smoke, but the site has been in the control of MIBR for a long old time now. Maybe Felipox has forgotten that that's what he's got in his hand, or potentially worried about that vertical and doesn't feel like he's being sufficiently covered, and he would be right. This was a rush and a push that has resulted in not a lot other than a cold diffuser on the ground, an overcommitment and a lack of holding.
Well, MIBR. Well, MIBR. 4-2. And I guess this was the question here of, are they going to be able to push this pressure and see if they can dig themselves a little bit further in? There's a spray, there's a drop over the top, there's a bit of a body back, and they're in a 3 versus 2. Katsang and Reduct have both suffered a handful of damage, but it's otherwise not going to be the full throughout as of yet. There's a minute 25, there's time, and they're going to make sure that they open it. Katsang has that diffuser, they have that watch from the second story. It puts Fools and Reduct in the tricky situation of trying to get a handle, trying to get a little bit of control back in. Time is what they have, but it slowly and steadily burns away, and that leaves them to just have a little bit of free reign. Talking of Yas, he's that loose player. He's going to stack up. The pings are coming through. They have an idea, and look at the way they've set up the hold there. It's above, it's below, and it's that connector between the pair of them.
This is a round that started so well and is just looking to end so badly, isn't it? 3 versus 2 in favour of DAMWON Kia. Reduct looking to push in. How much info has he got? That's the big question. He's going to chuck the lifeline out. It isn't going to hit his mark. Yas is pretty much a live red ping here, and we know that Reduct's only 1 or 2 bullets at most, but Reduct makes it happen, takes the challenge over onto Yas, hits the headshot, can now look to try and push on through. He's only moments away from being wallbanged realistically, and with the positioning of the diffuser, MIBR have got no choice but to fully commit and fully push. Reduct, 3 kills. Can he make it 4? Rin going to be holding from above. He's got 15 seconds to try and hold on here. Pre-fires onto 1, hits onto Reduct. It's a 1 versus 1 and a vertical angle. The diffuser has now been recovered as Rin is going to further miss. He can jump over. He can try and deny this. Hits the reload on the way. What a play by Rin. That was beautiful stuff. Holding upstairs inside a VIP. Flies himself over the top rope and a red ping for the pre-fire.
It was the connection that you needed to hit there at that point. It was everything you needed them to do, and that's that cool, that's that calm, and that's that DAMWON Kia, the second set of defenses we saw where they weren't being too over-aggressive. It was almost brilliant by MIBR, the pullback. As I said, time was on their side and they made sure it counted. They structured themselves to take the isolated players, digging the fight through and getting themselves into that position, but that verticality. Remember all of the times I said, hey, MIBR, hold on to your verticality a little bit better on your defenses. This is why. This is what it offers you on Coastline. It was a single player with an angle and a punch, and it was how it sort of locked itself in.
It's almost like MIBR tried to do the DAMWON Kia and sort of forgot the step of get the diffuser down. And I don't want to give Fleetbox too much of a hard time, but he was inside for a very long time and there was a big potential for him to get the plant down. If not there, he could have got it down elsewhere. And you've just got to question, why commit if you're not going to try and plant? Why commit if you're just going to try and bait out? Especially when you don't take that top floor. So, a strange round, a missed opportunity, but DAMWON Kia get themselves 1 round closer here. They're 2 rounds away from closing out the series, realistically. This is a 5-2. It could be over in the next 15 minutes. No problem whatsoever. And you've just got to wonder if that's really what MIBR deserve at this point. I think based off how they've played on Coastline, it's probably what they deserve. They haven't played very well. We've got a lack of kills, distinctly top to bottom. Reduct's the only player that's above 4, sitting on 8 and 6. So, I mean, really, realistically, what are you gonna do with it? You've got to come up with something fundamentally different here. And the confidence from DAMWON Kia is brimming round after round, time after time, and especially with clutches like that.
Yes waits patiently towards the double door for any approach that might come through. It's DAMWON Kia now playing the guessing game of where are they, but to be honest, it was revealed to them a little bit earlier by the fact they had the diffuser, because suddenly you have the center point of everybody's attention and focus. You can actually rebuild, restructure, and it almost was taken away from them, but almost isn't all the way. 5-2. Still have a heck of a difference to go, and DAMWON Kia in that 1 round have been able to get a 50% success rate compared to the previous 2 rounds that MIBR managed themselves. 1 more, and it's map point. And series point, and that's the big danger looming over it. This is MIBR's chance to try and claw a point. If DAMWON Kia take this map, then that's a full 6 points. That is such a big opener on the 2 days.
It's going to likely put them in a very unique position, I think, inside of their group. You know, 6 points, it's really massive, and it pretty much guarantees that you're going to be getting out in a very preferential seed as well. So very much so, there's a lot riding on these next couple of rounds, and opening up with a kill onto Raps isn't a bad way to kick things off. Coated is going to be the next casualty, as Fowls is going to be there with the trade, but Yas playing close inside of the garden, a bit of an unknown factor at the moment. Lukid with the shutdown onto Woogieman as Reduct is looking to pre-fire and make the very most of that LMG, but he didn't account for Rin hiding on upstairs. A couple of good rounds back to back, and it's now going to be Rin left to do it all. Swings the corner, could find one, potentially two. Didn't have the information. We can see already. Move ourselves back on into the meat and the bones of this round. Someone that's definitely deserving of a shout out at this point, Fluke, has got to be Woogieman. You think about his contribution over on Chalet, it was fantastic. Ended up with 14 kills, I think it was, 12 kills, something in that sort of ballpark. But it was equally like 10 deaths.
You're telling me?
Look at him now.
You're telling me MVP of day one?
Well, MVP of day one, right, comes into the first map and does okay. So he gets a lot of kills, but he also dies a lot of times. This time it's night and day different. He just obviously needed that as a little bit of a warm-up, and he's back on his day one form because he's currently 11-3 inside of this one, by far and away the highest contributor in terms of KD, and you just got a feeling that that isn't going to slow down anytime soon.
You're telling me MVP of the player day one is still doing it on day two? Honestly.
Well, he's doing it on map 2 of day 2.
It's terrifying though, isn't it?
Map 1.
Because every tournament has a hop-off player, and it used to be Yas. And it might still be Yas. It's day 2 of a long tournament. However, the fact that he's been able to put in these performances so consistently already in this short space of time across these opening best of threes, as an addendum to the work that Yas and Rin can do, as well as the clutch potential of Coated and Katsang that we've seen, it's a scarier, stronger DAMWON Kia. It's a DAMWON Kia that's firing on even more cylinders than the many they've fired on throughout this year. But it's not over yet. We've still got time. We've still got a lot of siege potentially ahead of us, and it's going to start here. The pressure from the Roteros as they see if they can sneak their way into all the destruction on the doorway of Hookah. They have some of that taken care of, but Coated's going to have to play a dangerous game of pop-up defense now as he tries to stop any drones that might get too close to his shield. And, well, that mute jammer is going to buy him some safety, but with a soft wall on the either side, it just takes two to be able to entirely circumvent that.
A little bit of Hibana action here from Felipox, trying to not only burn those laser gates, but also potentially remove the safety from the player that's going to try and sit on the top of those cool vibe stairs. A scuffed rotation. Bit of a lackluster setup there isn't going to make things easy now for Coated, especially with how precise you've got to be with your movements in that location. Rotero drone likely to follow things up here and further remove the player, potentially a nade from above as well, as Felipox is going to start to further this disruption and destruction. Oh, looking to open up now further angles.
Well, there's a handful of ex-Kairos that are thrown to the wind, easily popped off, and with a minute left, they still have time to go back to the drawing board, but
Bomb located by
well, there's still drawing board to be drawn on with every single player still up. Probably the longest that we've had all 10 faces on the board. They haven't quite been able to find each other yet, and at this point you're wondering if MIBR are going to be able to pull off the same tricks that DAMWON Kia are, or they're just a little bit more stuck because they've tried to burn utility. They're not hiding their presence, MIBR here. They just haven't quite been able to get the lock in. A grenade is eaten by an ADS on the far side. They find Woogieman underneath, but there's nobody there to try and drop him. They've put the pressure onto Hookah, but there's nobody to try and get through on the back of it. It's different to DAMWON Kia's approach, in that DAMWON Kia sort of suddenly burst their way in, and we got to have that from MIBR, and here it might come. There's 2 kills, there's at least 1 back, but the smoke canister pushes them into a trickier situation. How has he escaped that? How has he done that? Coated digs himself in. It's suddenly a 2 versus 1 versus 1, a slip away. He's trying to hop to a bit of safety. He's behind you. Do you hear it? No, he slips out of the way! DAMWON Kia! The tail is riddled with bullets, but the body survives, and they are on series point.
What a way to get through to series point as well. Coated. Let's start calling him Goated, Fluke. That was incredible. Laid down on the floor, the off angle, you never expect anyone to be playing there. It's perfect shotgun angle for him to use. The smokes came out well, and then the ring around the rosy for the 1v1. You've got to feel sorry for Raps. I mean, that is just heartbreaking stuff. A little bit of information, a little bit of a sound cue. He's working off instinct at that point. You've just got to go with your gut and go with that feeling or whatever that last call out was or would be. And it just wasn't quite enough. Hiding away, letting the time do the rest. Gets it over the line. DAMWON Kia, match and series point. What feels like already on Coastline. We haven't seen a lot of this map at all just yet. We're only now getting into round number 10. But there's potential for it to be all over inside of the next 3 or so minutes. Which I think for MIBR is going to be a little bit of a blow. And they need to try and come up with something here and now, because everything that they're doing so far has been met with so much resistance.
Now, this is obviously the site where things sort of started, came to a bit of a boil, and was not a blowout. It was a 1 versus 1 with dying seconds left, but you're sort of looking at how MIBR can shape that. Because when the push comes to the shove, they're doing a lot. It's just not enough. And just is such a delicate balance. They have the ability to have these conversations. They have the ability to have these moments of, we can piece this together, we can put the pressure on this end instead, and suddenly they're being a little bit decisive and dicey on the site. But otherwise, it's that worrying window again. It's that 10-second difference that we saw on a couple of rounds of Chalet, where they're just losing it out elsewhere. But that was the difference maker on that round. That was the chance of an MIBR round win, the 1 versus 1 before as well. Another 10 seconds. I'm not going to say it would have been as definite, but it would have been a more precise battle for him to be able to focus on the fight rather than having to stick the plant. 10 seconds is all they need, but they're the only ones that can try and find it.
You can almost feel the weight of this round with how MIBR are trying to approach it. There's going to be a lot of time spent in the drones. Philippox, Raps, Fouls, Redux, every single person at the moment is in a drone aside from Lukid. And that's not unusual. You know, Lukid's the entry. He's going to be trying to get those kills, but he's not even in yet because the call is so unclear and it's so much pressure on that initial engagement. Katsang doing his best to just keep everybody at bay inside of Sunrise. A couple of cursory shots towards the window is all that it is going to take. And Lukid takes a long time for the rotation, worried about the potential run out, not wanting to leave anything to chance here.
Katsang's a little bit skittish. He's moving around, and there's almost the entry. Woogieman is the first one to find a fight. Able to slip away from the double door, not quite get the drone, but waits for the swing to come round. Because it's open behind him, it means he cannot really sit in that corner. As you saw, Fools was setting themselves up to try and get the stack on the backside. There's a drone coming over from Luggage as well. They're dedicated to fishing out this single player, but nothing is otherwise coming into his favor as of yet. So he pulls out. Takes himself to the safety of White Stairs, gives himself a little bit more space to work with before he's entirely trapped in a corner, and at least he knows if a fight is going to come from White Stairs or not.
All this time wasting is great for DAMWON Kia as well, because although they're being pushed ever so slightly into different positions, it's not anything that's causing them too much harm, and there's so much option for rotation. Pretty much the entire west side of the map is clear at the moment. A couple of kills are going to trade on through. Lukid finds one. Rin is there when it matters, and Coated makes that Toxic Babe canister hit.
Well, there is Redux right in the middle, is able to get that crossfire. 30 seconds to work with. They have some time, and Coded has a little bit of a ring around the rosies. Other side of a soft wall. Lukid has no idea, though. There's a swing, and there's a spray. And it is DK that end up a little bit above. There's a triple for Coded. He's looking for one more. And it's a Rin that locks it out. It's DAMWON Kia to take the second series of theirs. It is another 2-0, another 3 points, another APAC team falling to the Koreans, and another APAC success.
What a result there for DAM.